Hello and welcome to These Are the Days of our podcast. I'm Jen,
And I'm Lisa, and today we are celebrating April Fool's Day.
which is celebrated on April 2nd. Tricked ya!
Oh my god, that's so bad!
Starting strong.
Oh, we're starting so strong. Oh my god.
So, Lisa, how much do you like being tricked?
Well, I'm pretty gullible, so I feel like it happens frequently. And depending on the trick, it makes me laugh a lot. But some tricks I don't like. I don't know my best trickery. Although, like, Andrew tries to trick me every day by being like, oh, I ordered a dozen donuts. And I was like, no, you didn't. Are they coming? And then he's like, no, I didn't order a dozen donuts. So, and yet I fall for it every time.
I love that you continue to be optimistic that donuts are just going to show up, even though they never do.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like, oh my god, there could be donuts. And then he's just like, but then it's just so funny because how can I not see that donuts are not coming?
There are never donuts, and you always think there might be.
Yeah.
Are we just too optimistic for our own good? We refuse to believe the historical facts that present themselves. Just like, I know there won't be donuts, but I will choose to hope for donuts. So your ability to be tricked is just a crisis of being hopeful.
I just always believe in donuts. Andrew, you're rude.
Yeah.
Yes.
Andrew is a good trickster, though. I feel like he is so deadpan when he says things with such authority. You're just like, I believe pretty much everything. Which is my problem with April Fool's Day as well, because I'm also really easily tricked. And I don't like feeling stupid. I
You?
have deep psychological issues and don't like being made to feel stupid. So I would say that April Fool's is probably my least favorite holiday.
Yeah, this is therapy for your life for you. And me, let's be honest.
Yeah. And there are some things that I still don't 100% know what the truth was. So one of them, so as you know, I grew up in like a very conservative Christian community. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, when Harry Potter was really popular, we weren't allowed to read Harry Potter because,
What? Actually?
yeah, because
Like, your parents were like, no, you can't read Harry Potter.
it wasn't really my parents, but I know there was like a movement in the church where it was like, you can't read Harry Potter because Harry Potter leads people to Satanism and paganism.
What?
Yeah. And so I know that this is like something that I was told by someone, and there were this like conservative focus on the family media outlet had written about like how Harry Potter was going to spark Satanism in children. But then I was looking this up because I was not sure where this came from. And then I found that there was an Onion article in 2000 that claims that children being introduced to magic brings out paganism and like and so I'm just not
so,
sure.
like, is it real? Or
This is the thing. I'm not sure if not getting into Harry Potter when I was like in adolescence is because the someone in the church read an Onion article, thought it was real, that Harry Potter leads to Satanism, and therefore we're not allowed reading Harry Potter.
whoa, that would be... I feel like The Onion, if they know this, and that is their claim to fame. Like, that is like the greatest trick they've got to have pulled on millions and millions of people.
I have looked this up since, and apparently quotes from this Onion article have been quoted for years in different articles about like children worshiping the devil because of indoctrination in young adult literature.
What?
I know. So I don't know if there's, like, a truth to this where some people actually read some Harry Potter and thought, "Oh, this is bad because magic means indoctrination with pagan beliefs," or if it all comes back to a satirical news article.
Oh, I hope I for the Onion's sake, and for mine actually, I really hope it comes back to that. I really hope
Mm.
so.
April Fools is really the kernel, the where fake news might have started, because there's a long history of news outlets releasing satirical news content and people misinterpreting it as true. And I am absolutely guilty of this, where sometimes I don't read in a lot of detail before sending things along and I get tricked.
Mm.
I get tricked sometimes, and it's really easy to get tricked by satirical news sites.
I mean, possible. I don't know if April Fools has anything to do with fake news. I feel like the media's bias is very prominent, and then you just skew things to your view.
Well, I think that there is just this laziness that we can have when reading the news where our deep-seated beliefs and political opinions might mean that we're a little bit lazy, like we're
Yeah.
kind of more biased to believe a headline that supports our.
But that can't be new. Like, that can't be a new phenomenon. I don't think we're more lazy than people who read a newspaper who glanced at
Mhm.
headlines. So I don't know if the rise of fake news is related to that specifically.
We can't blame all of fake news on April Fool's Day, so my campaign to have April Fool's Day stricken from the calendar is still.
I'm sorry, but it's I mean, you're voted down. Your motion does not pass. You are not getting rid of it. It stays,
Fine.
unfortunately.
Well, I will then share with you some facts about April Fool's Day. Okay, so whether or not April Fool's Day actually is the origin story for our fake news situation, we can maybe move away from that right now and just say no one actually knows where April Fool's Day came from. And there are some very different and very entertaining origin stories. So, one of them, because this I pulled out specifically because I know how much Lisa's loved the concentration on poetry in her podcast.
Why? Why? Honestly, there's never been poems in my life from high school into now. There's no need for poetry in our podcast.
So, some have argued that Chaucer in the 14th century.
Oh, he's the worst
I
one
know!
too.
I
Ugh,
strongly agree. Dislike. Chaucer, least favorite.
dislike.
So he wrote a 14th century poem where a fox plays a prank on a rooster and is almost eaten because of it. And the reference prank says that it takes place on the 1st of April. But the poem doesn't specifically refer to April 1st. He says 32nd days sin March began. So that's like 32 days since the start of March, which would be April 1st.
Good math. Good math. Yeah.
It's just not clear if that's actually, him referring to April 1st. He just might be trying to be using confusing words in poetry to make fun of people.
Because he didn't know how to do poetry, because that's what I remember about him.
That is also what I remember about him. Okay, so then the next theory, which I think might be the most plausible, is that it started in France in 1582 when France switched over to the Gregorian calendar. So this meant that previously they would celebrate New Year's at the beginning of spring or around Easter time, which would be somewhere around the 1st of April. And when they switched to the Gregorian calendar, it would switch to be the 1st of January. So back in 1582, it took a long time for news to spread for the whole country. And so it just basically was people that didn't know that New Year's had changed were considered to be fooled, and they were
Oh, dummies.
they were the country bumpkin dummies.
That's
And
a lot of stereotypes against country bumpkins that live on to this day.
yes, maybe this is where my, distaste for April Fools comes because I grew up in the country, and we would always say that something that happened in Toronto would take 5 years for us to know about it in London, Ontario, and then another 5 years for it to trickle down to Elmer. So, we were just, like, very, very far behind. So
So you're a solid 10 years behind any major city?
yes, exactly. So I think that, if they changed the calendar in Toronto, we would have been the gullible April fools who were just like
Mhm.
foolishly celebrating the beginning of spring as the beginning of year.
Or some deep-seated psychological issues. We'll never know.
Good thing this is a therapy podcast.
Good thing we're always gonna be in therapy.
So apparently in France, this is where they would start to like tape or glue a paper fish to someone's back because they were like, "You're fooled as a fish." I don't really know what that means, but basically they're like, "Fish are so easy to catch, just like stupid people."
Wait, are fish supposed to be easy to catch?
I don't know. I
I don't know, how plentiful are your fish to be able to catch?
maybe in the 1500s they actually still had fish before we just ruined the environment.
Oh.
So people said that French streams and rivers were easy to catch fish in, so they were foolish fish. So the most common trick, and apparently it's still common, is to attach a paper fish to someone's back.
That's a common trick?
And it's called poisson d'avril or the April fish.
Oh, good French accent.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Let's go to Paris. Oh, wait, we
Yes,
can't go
oui, oui.
anywhere. Oui, oui, biscuit.
Another one, which is one of my favorites, is in British folklore, April Fool's Day is associated with Gotham and Nottinghamshire, which, according to legend, King John in the 13th century decided to acquire land in Gotham for a hunting lodge. But this was not popular with the townsfolk, so they decided to
Wait, I have a
yeah,
question. Is Gotham a real place or is it just Batman City?
I don't know.
I didn't legitimately did not know that Gotham was a real place. Time out, let's Google.
Yes, it is actually a village in England. Okay, facts.
Oh, so it's not just where Batman lives.
Population 1,600.
Is everyone named Bruce Wayne? I don't know.
These are really good questions. Apparently, it comes from the Old English for goat home.
I've never seen a goat in Batman. So,
Well, that's a missed opportunity. Oh, they could do a goat-based reboot.
uh,
I would watch that,
yeah, I feel like
definitely.
they have a lot of options with their plot line now.
Yeah. Okay, so they could well, we're gonna move away from leaning in hard on the goat home, and the townsfolk of Gotham decided to play this cunning plan to dissuade the king. And they all decided to play the fool when the king's man arrived in town. And so the townspeople just did all of these like really ridiculous things, like trying to drown fish. And it was enough for the king's men to tell the king to choose somewhere else for his lodge because Gotham is just full of madmen. So
Mm.
April Fool's Day is therefore said to commemorate their trickery. So there's a lot of possible origin stories. There are a number of others like that it could actually have to do with ancient spring festivals where people dressed in costumes to fool each other. And then also if we head east, festivals like Holi, Holi, where they like throw colors and stuff, are said to be somewhat linked to this idea of April Fools, but you can just choose whichever one you believe.
I I mean, that's how facts work.
That's how
So,
facts work, especially facts about tricks.
yeah, true. True, true.
Yeah.
I could tell you some good pranks and some not so good ones cuz I got some of both. I'm going to start with the not so good ones so then we can like end on a more positive note
Okay.
cuz I mean, I know that you and I don't like trickery, but I don't think we would be this dumb and to do these tricks. I mean, I'm not putting it past us. I'm just like really it's a lot. Number 1, Author Jonathan Swift, who wrote Gulliver's Travels, set up a epic prank in 1708 by pretending to be an astrologer by the name of Isaac Birkenstaff, and he published a set of predictions, notably that a different famous astrologer, John Partridge, would die on March 29th. And then I guess the trick was that everyone kept on knocking on this other guy's door, John Partridge, to see what the funeral arrangements were, and they would do it every year on March 29th. He didn't know that it was really Jonathan Swift, and so he's like, "See, this is why it's a bad trick, because it's like no one's in on the joke. You're just being kind of cruel," which
Mm.
we don't like about it. I'm moving on from that one. That one
Well, that's
sucked.
also reminds me of celebrity death hoaxes when there's a news story that says, like, "Someone's dead," and you're just like,
Yeah, so like,
"Are they?" It's not really fun.
yeah, why don't we learn from these? And you know what? Never fake a death. It's not funny. Next one. Oh, you're going to get a learning from this one. In 1986, an Israeli intelligence officer played an April Fool's prank involving fake news that an Islamic leader had been seriously wounded in an assassination attempt. Do you find this funny?
That sounds hilarious.
No.
No.
So immediately, news around the world picks it up. It's a huge flare up of tensions in the region. And like the highest ranking guy who sent it into the news station is court martialed. So let's not play pranks on tensions in the Middle East. That's the second learning we've learned from
Let's
this.
maybe not incite a war
Yeah, let's
in
not incite war in a region that has had a lot of tension.
yeah, I feel like we're
Yeah.
setting a very low bar of expectations. Like, 1, don't start a war for April Fool's joke, it's not that funny.
2, don't fake deaths.
Very good. Okay, continue. What are some other good ones?
The next one is kind of funny only because it's mean, but it's like kind of funny because we're like, oh, I get it. I'm so pretentious and like I know things. On April 1st, 2002, a couple of Kansas City DJs announced that a local water supply had been found to contain high levels of dihydrogen monoxide. Ooh. Which side effects include sweating and urination. I guess like hundreds of people flooded the water department's telephone lines and the police super distressed out. But as we know, dihydrogen monoxide is just the chemical name for
H2O.
or water, but they did get highly criticized. I don't know if they lost their job, but then another DJ in 2013 pulled the same prank and they got kicked off the air, so they lost their jobs and they almost had felony charges against them. Yeah, so that one did not go down well.
I kind of understand why the Kansas City ones, the OG dihydrogen monoxide, people may have incited a bit of panic because didn't Aaron Brockovich come out around year 2000? So everyone was really concerned with the water supply, and they're just like, we gotta get Aaron Brockovich on this
Yeah, probably.
chemical spill. So that like makes more sense to me, but 2013.
I think a learning from this one is probably not to trick people into thinking they're poisoned or one of the basic 3 necessities of life is going to cause side effects. You know?
Mm,
You should probably
yeah,
yeah, like let's just keep shelter, food and water, safety. Let's keep those
yeah.
untouchable.
And if someone were to say the chemical compounds in air, I probably would get fooled by that because I know that it's like a mixture of gases. Compound of air, I'd be just like, what is that?
Yeah, cuz there's like actually not that much oxygen in the air as you'd
Yeah,
think and I was like,
exactly.
"What? How am I breathing?"
How does lungs and science work?
Yeah.
Okay,
Next
that's a good learning. Don't pretend
yeah.
to poison people's water supply.
Next one, 2001. This one we won't like. You and me specifically. A lot of people won't like this one, but it's not like especially cruel, just had really bad after effects. So in 2001, a DJ in England decided to prank people by saying that a ship that looked suspiciously like the Titanic could be seen from the cliffs at Beachy Head in East Sussex. And so hundreds of people went to these cliffs to try to catch a glimpse of it. And because of all this large foot traffic, it caused a huge crack into this cliff face, and which fell into the sea. So we don't like environmental damage. That's
Yeah.
not our jam.
No, no.
I saved this one for last because it's the worst.
Oh, good.
Saddam Hussein, big fan of April Fools.
What?
Yeah, which sounds literally awful. So on April 1st, 1998, the state-run newspaper, so owned by his son, informed readers that President Clinton had decided to lift sanctions against Iraq. So basically, like, oh, things are going to get better. You're going to get food and all this stuff. And then literally was like, no, I'm joking. Can you
Oh,
imagine?
I'm actually speechless. That's so terrible.
So terrible. And then he did it again years later. Same joke, reused the same joke. And then he did another one that was like your food rations would include chocolate and pop and like sugary things. And there was like, no, I'm just joking.
Oh my goodness, that's so horrible.
Isn't that so horrible and sad?
Yeah.
Oh. We have to go. We have to move on. I can't process that emotionally. I'm gonna move on to some good ones though.
Can I start with
You
the
have
oldest one? Because it's quite lighthearted. Sometime in the 1400s, there was a haunted snack situation. See, these are where April Fools can be funny. So Thomas Betson was a prankster monk. And this is one of the earliest documented practical jokes. And he hollowed out an apple and hid a beetle inside of it. And then he fooled his fellow monks into believing that this mysterious rocking apple was possessed.
Oh, that's so funny.
That is a good one.
That's the kind of funny mischievousness I enjoy. So some other good ones. In 1998, Burger King announced that it was offering a version of the Whopper that was carefully designed for left-handed people. Stores across all of the US were flooded with orders for the left-handed Whopper, which is very funny. I think that's like a very clever marketing campaign.
Definitely.
Every year, Google has some great ones. They always have some cute additions to their website. One year, they released the Google Tulip, which is a product that lets you communicate with tulips. Yeah. And they said that they're making progress with cacti, which just want to be left alone, it would appear.
Oh, that's perfect. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Okay, just to say, not that the pandemic took so much from us already, but apparently for the first time in ages, 2020 was the first year that Google did not release an April Fool's prank because we're just like at the beginning of the pandemic and like there's just like so much happening that there was no time for April Fool's trickery.
Oh, didn't they know we needed some joy in our life?
Yeah, hopefully this year.
The tech companies have good ones. So the next two are tech companies. So Shutterstock said it was unveiling plans to build the world's largest physical library called IRL, in which there'd be shelves upon shelves upon shelves of stock photos, watermark videos, and music tracks, because sometimes innovation means moving backwards. So funny. Duolingo, the app to learn languages, introduced something on April 1st called Duolingo Push, in which an owl would show up at your door to remind you to practice.
Oh.
You're like, I would learn so many languages if a cute little owl showed up at my door. I think I'm going to say the most famous one, and one that I feel like is quintessentially British to me. In 1957, on April 1st, BBC News show Panorama announced that thanks to a very mild winter and the virtual elimination of the dreaded spaghetti weevil,
Mhm.
I guess is an
Mhm.
insect, Swiss farmers were enjoying a bumper spaghetti crop. It accompanied this announcement with footage of Swiss peasants pulling strands of spaghetti down from the trees. Huge numbers of viewers were taken in. Many called the BBC wanting to know how they could grow their own spaghetti tree, to which they replied, plant a sprig of spaghetti in a tin of tomato sauce and hope for the best. Years later, the Director General of the BBC admitted that he had to check the encyclopedia to find out how spaghetti actually grew,
It's
and that
amazing.
the encyclopedia had no entry on spaghetti.
I love this so much because it's such a venerated, like, the BBC is such a world authority, and they're just like, "The spaghetti crop."
Oh, how does it work? Just plant it in some tomato sauce. I'm not going to give you a real answer.
That's amazing. I actually think that the British do come by their prankster ways, like, relatively naturally, because my favorite one that I found was one of the earliest April Fool's hoaxes as well, and it's from 1698. People were invited to go to the annual washing of the lions at the Tower of London. So they showed up and they had, like, invitations for the annual lion washing ceremony, and hundreds and thousands of people would show up only to realize that they'd been tricked. This prank had continued actually for centuries. So this is like well into the 19th
That's
century
a good
that
one.
people were still being invited like several hundred years later still for the annual washing of the lions. I really like it when things like the BBC and agencies like National Geographic get in on the fun. In 2016, National Geographic released an announcement that they were no longer going to publish photographs of naked animals. Saying that this media group will no longer degrade animals by showing photos of them without clothes. And then if you clicked through, it was you were greeted by April Fools and then just a gallery of adorably dressed puppies and
Yeah,
kittens.
it's very
And I was
cute.
just like, that's amazing. So things that are whimsical, lighthearted, super cute. I think that's where I get a lot of joy from April Fool's Day, but like, inciting public panic,
Yeah.
wars,
Fake deaths.
telling people that you're not going to get sugar in your rations. I feel like that's one step or several steps way too far for me to support.
Yeah, I agree.
Clearly, April Fools is not everyone's cup of tea. So if you're not gluing paper fish on people's backs or trying to get people to wash lions, there are some other things you can celebrate. Also, National Burrito Day. But now that I've spent all of this time thinking of being tricked, I'm quite scared of any food based celebrations because what if you're being tricked? And what if it's the classic salt in the coffee instead of sugar situation for your burrito?
You have to go to a trusted source like Chipotle.
Exactly. Oh, also, in some countries like the UK and Canada, you need to stop precisely at 12. So it's only a half day holiday.
Apparently, only schools implemented that just because they did not want to deal with children. So apparently, that's not really a thing, except for it's like a school thing. Like, it was introduced by schools to be like, you stop all the fun. You're no fun schools and
Well, I
children.
am still believing that and just feel like I can breathe a sigh of relief if I make it to noon and I am still okay.
We'll see, because I'll trick you at 5 p.m.
Don't do it, Lisa. You'll break the rules.
I'm fine with that. You're like, Jen doesn't like being made to feel stupid and doesn't like breaking the rules.
These are shocking revelations. I feel like nobody knows this about me. On April the 2nd, you can celebrate Children's Book Day and also National Ferret Day. Since it's the start of the month, there's a lot of month themes that you can think about. So it's Pet Month, it's Pecan Month, it's International Guitar Month, and it's Stress Awareness Month. So lots of just delightful themes for the month of April. Is anyone good born on April 1st?
No? Some days just have a ton of people, and then some days you're like, I haven't heard of any of these people. Things I do know about April 1st is that obviously it's disputed because everything good in history is that the Last Supper took place on April 1st, which makes sense as it's
Eastery.
just before Easter. Famous birthdays. We have Joseph Murray, born April 1st. He was an American plastic surgeon who is the first person to successfully do a kidney transplant. Very useful.
But he was a plastic surgeon?
Well, I mean, back then, whatever. Did that mean anything?
Also a barber,
I mean, that
also
was in
just
1954, so he probably wasn't just a barber. He did win a Nobel Prize for that. No, for something else, but he won it.
that's pretty important.
And he was in the war, so, like, he did a lot of
So Joseph Murray, the not nephrologist who did the first kidney transplant.
yeah. Susan Boyle, April 1st. Yeah,
Oh.
I feel like one of the OG viral videos? Okay, maybe not OG, but, like, early on viral video, yeah, of her performance on
I dreamed a
I
dream
mean,
Britain's Got Talent.
that doesn't sound like that. Exactly.
Hurtful.
And that's all I got.
There is one other fool that we can talk about as we head our separate ways. There is a dessert that's called a fool, and it's a sweet, soft food made of crushed fruit, cream, and sugar. A classic one is called a gooseberry fool,
What?
and
I'm so
that is
into
what I
this. I
want.
want this.
Yes. I know, right? So I think that the real way that we should celebrate April Fool's Day is via crushed fruit, cream, and sugar gooseberry
Yeah, I don't need a
fools.
prank. My only fool is gonna be this delicious dessert.
Exactly.
Why am I this old and no one's told me?
Right?
I
Also, the education
think
system failed
the
us.
education system. Oh, let's just not have fools before noon because you know what? You don't get dessert. You don't get it. Okay? You don't get afternoon dessert. You know what? I'm really upset.
Before you go, please rate.
Review and subscribe.
To These Are the Days of our podcast.
Woo!
Talk to you later, Lisa.
Okay, bye.
These are the days, my friends, the hours and descends. Let's sing and dance and make a bunch of noise. So let the fun ensue and learn a thing or two. These are the days.